Hey there, welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph and I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. So this is my Wednesday night favorite show in which I choose a topic and give you my favorites of that topic. So today we're going to do originally I was going to do my top 10 favorite solo pieces from progressive rock, but then I decided that if I just did it that way, I'd have like 3 or 4 bands that would dominate the whole thing and nobody else would get a say. So I decided to do it this way. So I'm going to give you my favorite solo from 10 different bands, and I'm going to put them in an order. So, and what I also have done, and to try and make it a little bit more fair, is the five progressive bands that I've been listening to for a long time, I'm going to rate them together, and then the 5 new ones, I'm going to rate them together. That way it's kind of fair. I've done this before. It's just because there's quite a few newer bands that I've only had 1 or maybe 2 albums exposure to. It doesn't seem kind of fair to rate them against the ones I've had 10 and 15 albums with. It doesn't. So that's the way I'm going to do it. So I will pick one solo from each of those groups, and then I will give you the honorable mentions. Except for the honorable mentions, I'm going to give as I do the group. So I'll give you the one I chose for the position I chose it in, and then I'll give you a couple of honorable mentions. And some of the older ones are tough because there's at least a half a dozen with some of them that I really like, but I could only choose one. And the funny part is that a couple bands, my favorite musician is the guitar player, but I didn't choose them. I choose the keyboardist. So, I tried to give you the songs that are my favorite, and none of these solos necessarily are the best solos of these groups, but these are my favorite ones, the ones that I enjoy the most. So, anyways, we'll start with the newer groups first. Give them a lot of attention first. So we're going to go to number 5 from a band that I only recently discovered, and this was one that I discovered from Ben's album challenge, and this is Journey. So there was a guitar solo on the Journey debut album on Of a Lifetime that I really enjoyed. So that would be my number 5 solo for the new bands. And also an honorable mention goes out to my Mystery Mountain, the guitar solo in Mystery Mountain, which I liked quite a bit as well. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can read some of my handwriting a little bit better. Okay, so the number 2 band, or the number 4 band, because we're doing this in reverse order. So the number 5 was Journey's guitar solo on Of a Lifetime. Of a Lifetime, yeah. Okay, so I'm just not as familiar with some of these as I was with some of the other ones. Okay, so the next one up comes from a band called Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Sorry, glasses are foggy. So Emerson, Lake and Palmer is a band I've known for many, many years, but I haven't really listened to much of their stuff. I only have the 1 album, but there are a couple things by them that I like quite a bit. The first one is a keyboard solo that comes off of Lucky Man. So coming in 4th is Lucky Man from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. An honorable mention goes out to the keyboard solo from Tarkus as well. Another keyboard, I really like that quite a bit too. So then we jump up to the next band, which in this case is King Crimson, coming in at 3rd. And the song I chose was 21st Century Schizoid Man, and it was the guitar solo in that, which was probably my favorite solo from King Crimson. So coming in number 3, the guitar solo from King Crimson's 21st Century Schizoid Man. But honorable mention goes out to the flute solo in Court of the Crimson King as well. I like that a lot. Okay, so then we're on up to the number 2 band. In this case, it comes from a band that I like a lot. It's become one of my favorite new progressive rock bands. So the number 2 solo is the keyboard solo from Crying in the Dark from Nectar's Tab in the Ocean album. And the honorable mention goes to the the organ solo on the song Tab in the Ocean from the same album. And I did make a small notation that there was a part that I really liked in on the keys in King of Twilight 2, but I didn't really think it was much of a solo, so I just decided to not include it as part of the thing. So then the number 1 band from a band who I only have I wouldn't say they're new to me, they're not, they've been around for 40 years, but I've only had the 1 album up until recently, and then I've added the 2nd album. Sorry. And that is from Gentle Giant. So Gentle Giant's going to come in at number 1 for the new 5, and it's going to be the guitar solo from, let me make sure I pronounce this right, The House, the Street, the Room. Such a great guitar solo. That's definitely going to become one of my favorite of all time. I'm sure of it. And then there's a kind of a bass, guitar, and key solo that kind of all going interwoven, which is normal for Gentle Giant, from the song Plain Truth as well. So that is my top 5 for the newer bands. I'll repeat them now. So number 5 is Journey's guitar solo on Of a Lifetime. Number 4 is the keyboard solo from Lucky Man from ELP. Number 3 is the guitar solo from King Crimson's 21st Century Schizoid Man, which is on the Court of the Crimson King. Number 2 is the keyboard solo from Crying in the Dark, which is on Nectar's Tab in the Ocean album and comes from the band Nectar, of course. And number 1, Gentle Giant, guitar solo from House, the Street, the Room from Acquiring the Taste. So those are my top 5 for the newer progressive bands. Now for the more established bands with me, the ones who have a lot more albums and a lot more to choose from, this may take a while. There's a lot here. So we'll start with the number 5. So the number 5 band is going to come from Pink Floyd, and it's going to be the guitar solo on Time, which is on the Dark Side of the Moon album. Oh so good. I love that. Sometimes sometimes I'm if I'm listening to stuff on headphones, I'll just play that part over and over again. I just love it so much. It's such a great song. And the honorable mentions go to, of course, more guitar stuff on Money, on Mother, and on Comfortably Numb. So Money, of course, is on Dark Side of the Moon, and the other 2 are on The Wall, which is strange for me because I don't really care much for The Wall. I do like some bass tracks on, I think it's Pigs, on Animals as well. So there's our honorable mentions for Pink Floyd coming in at number 5. So coming in at number 4 is Jethro Tull. Need I say what the solo is going to be? Okay, actually it was a bit of a tough choice here, but I think you got to kind of go with the flute. Can't see how you can't go with the flute. I chose the song Beret because it's not because it's his most complex or hardest or any of that. I just enjoy it the most. So the flute solo on Beret, And then, of course, there's a couple of guitar solos. The one on Locomotive Breath by Martin Barre, of course, and then on Aqualung for Martin Barre as well. So those are the so that for number 4, it's Jethro Tull's Beret flute solo. Okay, so then we go to the number 3. This was very tough because I love these 3 bands quite a bit, but in this case, Rush is going to come in at 3rd, and it's going to be the guitar solo on Anthem. Love that guitar solo. It's one of the heaviest and just like so magical. And you know, it was hard to choose the guitar here because of my great love for Geddy Lee, and for being a drummer, I of course love Neil Peart, but I decided on that because it's one of the most memorable parts of the music that Rush. Now, there is a drum fill that I like quite a bit on La Villa Strangiato. I also love the guitar solo on that a lot as well, and the bass solo. So there's that song gets all 3 of them. There's also the bass solo on YYZ. Bass solo, I wouldn't really call it a bass solo. It's more like a bass fill. So maybe a fill might be a better term for that. And then, of course, I love the guitar solo on Spirit of Radio as well. So I mean, there's just so many good ones by this band. They just have like a plethora of great solos, and of course the drum solo on All the World's the Stage, the one from his from the 2015 concert in Germany. Top shelf solos there. I mean, Neil Peart is one of the greatest drummers of all time, and his solos are just unbelievable. I like some of the little bit of the drum solo in Bytor and the Snow Dog at the end. It's not really a drum solo, it's kind of a drum fill, but still, nevertheless, just great. Okay, so then we move on to number 2. This was very tough to choose between these 2 bands, which first of all, to pick one solo from each of these 2 bands was like extremely tough, and to decide which band had the better solo. So it really just came down to which one I love the most, and I love them both, but I chose. So for number 2, it's Genesis, the keyboard solo on Cinema Show. Unbelievable, you know, just unbelievable. Another honorable mention, the guitar solo on I can't even read what I wrote. On Can Utility and the Coastliners. That's one of the best guitar solos on any Genesis album. Steve Hackett is just amazing. You could pick out a dozen from Genesis that Steve Hackett does, and you wouldn't be wrong with any of them. The one on Supper's Ready is fantastic. The Fountain of Salamis, I love that one too. And then there's one by Anthony Phillips. I forgot all about this one, and I put it in here at the last minute. The guitar solo on The Knife, top shelf, as good as any other Genesis solo, but I had to choose one, so I chose Tony Banks's keyboard solo on Cinema Show. Now I know he has some fantastic keyboard solos on The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. The reason I chose this one is because I've had a long history with it. Whereas The Lamb is a fairly new album to me within the last couple of years, and to be honest, I haven't listened to it enough to really say how much I like or don't like it. So, so I went with Cinema Show, which is great. I mean, you could choose the one on Watchers of the Sky as well. Just some really great stuff. So Genesis comes in at number 2. So number 1, of course, is going to be Yes. And this was a very difficult task because I am a huge Steve Howe fan. I love just about everything he does. But I didn't choose him. I chose Rick Wakeman's keyboard solo on Close to the Edge. And it's not his best keyboard solo. The one Awakening is really good. Silent Wings of Freedom, another really good one. And then there's some stuff that Patrick Moraz does on the Gates of Delirium. The keyboard solo on Roundabout even. Or on, those are the big ones for him. But the one I chose was from Close to the Edge. It's not the best one, but it's the one that I remember the most and the one I've played the most. And he beat out just by a hair the guitar solo on Yours Is No Disgrace, which is probably my favorite Steve Howe guitar solo. But I also equally pretty closely like the one on Starship Trooper, the one on Perpetual Change. That whole album is just fantastic. I like his guitar solo on Sound Chaser. Like, is there any better guitar solo in rock than the one on Sound Chaser? And then a lot of the guitar he did on Drama is just fantastic as well. So I mean, you can't go wrong with really any of these, but for today I chose Close to the Edge. So for my big five, or for my older five, I'll call it, number 5 was Pink Floyd's guitar solo on Time, great, by David Gilmour, and that's from Dark Side of the Moon. Jethro Tull's flute solo on Beret from, I think Beret's on Stand Up. Yeah, Stand Up. It's just fairly new to me, but I've heard this particular song was on a Greatest Master Hits that I had before, so I got to know it quite a bit. Number 3 was the guitar solo on Anthem from Fly By Night by Rush. Number 2 was Genesis keyboard solo on Cinema Show from Selling England by the Pound. And then number 1 was the keyboard solo, Yes's keyboard solo by Rick Wakeman on Close to the Edge, on Close to the Edge. So there you have it. Those are my tops. So I'll just reiterate it one more time. Yes is in number 1, with the keyboard solo on Close to the Edge, the album and the song. Number 2 was Genesis Cinema Show, featuring the keyboard solo by Tony Banks on Cinema Show on the album Selling England by the Pound. Number 3 was the guitar solo on Anthem by Alex Lifeson for Rush on the album Fly By Night. Number 4 was the flute solo on Beret from the album Stand Up by Jethro Tull, and the flute, of course, is played by Ian Anderson. Number 5 was Pink Floyd's guitar solo on Time from Dark Side of the Moon by David Gilmour. Okay, so for the new ones, we have coming in at number 1 was Gentle Giant's guitar solo on The House, the Street, and the Room. The guitar solo, and that was on Acquiring the Taste, and the guitar solo, of course, is by Gary Green. Number 2 was from Nectar. It was the keyboard solo, Crying in the Dark. The keyboards, of course, I can't even think of who plays the keyboards. Completely went out of my mind. I can't remember the keyboard player. Is it Alan Taft Freeman? I think it's Alan. Yeah, Alan Taft Freeman. So for the guitar solo on Crying in the Dark from Tab in the Ocean for Nectar. So number 3, King Crimson's guitar solo by Robert Fripp on 21st Century Schizoid Man from the album In the Court of the Crimson King. So then we have, coming in at number 5, we have Emerson, Lake and Palmer's keyboard solo by Keith Emerson on the song Lucky Man, And I'm not sure what album that's from. I'm not sure. It might be, is it Lucky Man, or is it their self-debut album? I think it's their debut album. Okay, so then number 5 is from Journey, their debut album, the guitar solo by Neil Scott on a Lifetime. So, and that's from Journey's debut album. So there you have it. Well, this was a bit of a difficult one to do. So many good things to choose from, so many bands to choose from. I chose these ones for the newer ones, because I only had one album to choose them from, basically, or a couple albums in the case of a couple of them. But I chose the ones that I liked the best, not necessarily their best. And then for the old ones, pretty much the same thing. I chose the ones I like the most, not necessarily their best ones. But I had a lot more to choose from with them, and that took a lot of time to figure out which ones I should include and which ones I shouldn't. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be back next week with something new and something, another favorites. And I hope you like and subscribe. It's much appreciated. And have a good night, and we will see you for the Friday Night Live show, Friday Night Live experience on Friday. So have a good night. Bye.